I still remember the day she stopped replying. It wasn't dramatic. No argument, no goodbye. Just a gap. A silence that stretched longer than it should have, until it became its own kind of noise. Maybe that's where this story really began, in the space between messages that never got sent to her. At the time, I was working part-time at a small auto repair shop on the edge of town. The kind of place that always smelled faintly of oil, rain, and burnt coffee. She came in one afternoon. Her car was an older silver sedan, clean but tired, like her smile. I didn't notice her at first. I only heard her voice, calm, low, deliberate, asking if someone could check a rattling sound near the back wheel. When I looked up, she was standing near the counter, holding her car keys like they were something fragile. Mid-40s, maybe. Hair tucked behind one ear, sunglasses resting in her hand instead of her face. There was this quiet confidence about her, not the kind that fills a room, but the kind that makes you lower your voice without realizing. I told her I could take a look. She nodded, and in that nod was 1,000 small things I couldn't name. While I worked on her car, she lingered near the garage door, watching without saying much. Every so often, she'd cross her arms, then uncross them, shifting her weight like she was trying not to seem impatient. When I made a small joke about how her car had seen better days, she smiled. Not big, not loud, but in that way where her eyes softened first. That smile stuck with me. When I finished, she thanked me, and for a moment I thought she was going to say something else, something real. But she just nodded again, slipped her keys into her purse, and said, "Maybe I'll see you next time it makes a new sound." I should have left it there, but I didn't. A few days later, she texted the shop number, thanking me again, asking if the rattle could come back. It wasn't a flirty message. It wasn't anything, really. But the way she wrote felt careful, like someone who's used to choosing words that won't be misunderstood. We started talking more after that. Small things, weather, music, the bad coffee we both pretended to like. I didn't realize how much I looked forward to her messages until the day they stopped coming. At first, I told myself she was busy. Then I told myself it didn't matter. Then I caught myself checking my phone before bed like some idiot waiting for a ghost to type back. A week passed. 7 days of silence. I didn't text again. I told myself I wouldn't. But every night I'd replay her voice in my head. That slow, steady tone. The way she'd say my name as if it surprised her each time. I still don't know why she stopped replying. Maybe I said something wrong. Maybe she realized I was too young, too eager. Or maybe, and this thought stayed with me the longest, she just wanted to see if I'd noticed the quiet. Because I did. Even now, months later, whenever I hear a car door slam or a ringtone that sounds like hers, I feel that same pause. That same unspoken thing hovering in the space between two people who should have said more, but didn't. And maybe that's what she wanted all along. To leave me wondering. To leave me listening to the silence she left behind. It was almost 3 weeks before I saw her again. The shop was quieter that morning, cloudy lights slipping through the glass, radio humming softly in the background. I was tightening a belt under the hood of a pickup when I heard the door chime. I looked up, and there she was. Same car. Same quiet way of standing like she didn't belong anywhere for too long. Her eyes met mine, just for a second, before she looked down and smiled. Polite, careful. "The sound's back," she said. Or maybe it's a new one. I wiped my hands on a rag and tried not to sound as relieved as I felt. "You picked the right guy then." She laughed once, short, almost surprised. It wasn't the sound of joy. It was more like she hadn't expected to laugh at all. When I checked her car, she stayed nearby again, leaning against the counter, scrolling through her phone but not really reading anything. Every so often, I'd catch her watching me, the kind of glance people give when they're trying to remember something. I asked if she'd been busy lately. Her fingers hesitated on the screen. "You could say that," she murmured, still not looking up. "Sometimes life just decides for you." There was something in her tone, not sadness exactly, but distance. Like she'd built a wall and was testing if I'd notice it. I didn't push. I just nodded and kept working. But I found myself noticing things I hadn't before. The faint bruise near her wrist, the way she kept tugging her sleeve down to hide it, the small chip in her nail polish, the tremor in her voice when she said she was fine. When I told her the car was good to go, she smiled again, but softer this time, tired around the edges. She reached for her keys, but dropped them. Reflexively, I bent to pick them up at the same time she did. Our hands brushed, not long, not planned, just long enough for the air between us to tighten. She froze for half a heartbeat, then pulled back, mumbling, "Thanks." "Anytime," I said quietly. That word, anytime, hung there longer than it should have. She heard the tone. I could tell. She didn't leave right away. She stood by the door, fingers tracing the handle, eyes on the floor. Then she looked up and said, "You shouldn't always be this kind, you know? It makes people expect too much." Her words were calm, but her voice trembled. "I don't mind expectations," I said before I could stop myself. That made her laugh again, barely. Then she shook her head, almost to herself, and stepped outside. I watched her car pull out of the lot, taillights glowing faintly through the mist. And as the sound faded, I realized it wasn't just her silence that unsettled me anymore. It was how she kept showing up like a question I wasn't supposed to answer. It was a Thursday night, the kind that feels half asleep. Rain pressed softly against the shop windows, and the sound of it filled every silence that neither of us knew how to break. She had stopped by just before closing, said her headlights were flickering, though when I checked, everything was fine. I think we both knew she wasn't here for the car. The storm had come in heavier, and I offered to wait with her until it eased. She hesitated, hand still on the doorknob, then sighed. "Maybe just for a bit," she said. We sat in the small office where the smell of engine oil mixed with stale coffee. She was sitting across from me, tracing the rim of her cup with a finger, the light flickering above her head. Every time lightning flashed, her face looked different, softer, almost uncertain. She asked how old I was. 27, I said. "Why?" She smiled faintly. "You seem younger when you talk, older when you're quiet." I wanted to ask what she meant, but her phone buzzed on the table. The name on the screen, David, lit up before she flipped it face down. She didn't answer, just stared at the phone for a moment too long. I tried to sound casual. "You can take it if you need to." She shook her head. "It's nothing. It's always nothing lately." The words hung there, heavy, quiet, personal. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded, pretending to study the rain outside. But I could feel the weight of her silence. It wasn't cold. It was tired. When she finally spoke again, her voice was low. "You ever get used to being alone?" I looked at her, really looked. The smudge of mascara near her temple, the tired way she blinked after asking. I wanted to tell her that I didn't, that I'd been waiting for something like this without even realizing it. But I said, "Not really. You just learn to fill the space." That made her laugh, quietly, but with something cracked in it. "You're too honest," she said, meeting my eyes. "That's going to hurt you one day." Her phone buzzed again. She ignored it again. Then she looked back at me, and something shifted, not in words, but in the air between us. She reached for her coat, but her hand brushed mine on the desk. We both froze. For a second, neither of us moved. The rain grew louder, the lights dimmed slightly, and I could hear the soft rhythm of her breathing. She didn't pull away, not right away. Then, almost apologetically, she whispered, "You should lock up soon." I nodded, though I didn't move either. The space between us wasn't large, but it felt impossible to cross. Every part of me wanted to say something, anything, but I didn't. And maybe that silence was the only honest thing left. When she finally stood, she glanced back once, raincoat half-buttoned, eyes unreadable. "You're a good man," she said softly. "Don't stay here too late." And then she was gone. The storm kept beating against the glass, but the quiet she left behind was louder than the thunder. She came by again on a Monday, unannounced, no appointment. Just walked in while I was closing up, rain still caught in her hair. "Sorry," she said. "I was driving past. Thought I'd stop in." I nodded, pretending it was normal, pretending I hadn't thought about her every night since that storm. "Sure. You want coffee? It's terrible, but it's warm." She smiled, tiredly. "Warm sounds nice." The shop was nearly dark except for the faint yellow light above the counter. I poured her a cup, watched her blow on it even though it wasn't that hot. Her hands trembled slightly when she set it down. We didn't talk much. Just the sound of the clock ticking and cars passing somewhere outside. Every now and then she'd start to say something, then stop halfway, like the words didn't belong to her anymore. After a while, she said quietly, "You ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" I didn't answer right away. All the time. She looked up at me then, eyes red-rimmed but dry. "I keep thinking I'm supposed to feel lucky. I have enough. But sometimes I don't even know what that means." The words cracked something in the air, something fragile we'd both been pretending not to notice. "I don't know what this is," I said, before I could stop myself. "Whatever's happening between us. I can't." I stopped, searching for words that didn't sound like confession. Her lips parted slightly, as if she'd been waiting for that. "Don't," she said softly. "Don't name it. That's how things start falling apart." We just stared at each other. The light flickered once. Her breath shook when she exhaled. "I wasn't supposed to come back here," she whispered. "I told myself it was just the car, just convenience." She looked down, tracing the handle of her cup. "But it's not that, is it?" I swallowed. No, the word felt heavy, final. She stood slowly, like moving took effort. For a moment, it seemed like she might reach out. Her hand lifted slightly, then stopped midair. "You're too young for this kind of mess," she said. "For people like me. I'm old enough to understand when something feels real," I said. My voice sounded smaller than I meant it to. Her eyes met mine, wide, searching, afraid. "Then you understand why it can't." We just stayed like that, neither moving, neither breaking the silence that had become its own kind of closeness. I could feel her pulling away without stepping back, and somehow that hurt worse. When she finally turned to leave, she paused at the door. The bell above it jingled softly, absurdly cheerful. She didn't look at me when she said, "You're going to make someone very happy one day. Just not me." The door shut gently behind her, but it sounded like a slammed confession. And in the silence that followed, I realized she hadn't left me with goodbye, only a truth I didn't know how to hold. It had been almost 2 weeks since I last saw her. I tried not to notice how quiet everything had gotten again, how every sound at the shop seemed to echo just a little too much. Then, one afternoon, I found something strange on the front counter. An envelope, folded once, no name, no handwriting, just grease-smudged edges and a faint scent of her perfume clinging to the paper. Inside was a photo. It was old, maybe 15 years ago, of her standing beside a man and a little boy. She looked almost the same, just younger, softer around the eyes. The man's arm was around her shoulder, the boy on his hip. None of them were smiling quite right. There was only one line written on the back: "He'd be your age now." My chest tightened, like I'd stepped somewhere I shouldn't have. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept turning the photo over in my hand, wondering why she'd left it, wondering if she meant for me to see it at all. The next morning, she came back. No warning again. Just walked in as if she'd never said goodbye. She looked different, calmer, maybe, or just tired of pretending. "You found it," she said quietly, eyes on the counter. "I did." She nodded, still not looking at me. He was my son. The world tilted a little, sound fading into something distant. I didn't speak, didn't trust myself to. She went on, voice steady but fragile. "He died when he was 17. Car accident. Same model as mine." Her hand trembled as she reached for the photo. I don't even know why I kept bringing it here. Maybe I wanted to see if the world still moved. For a long moment, we just stood there in the stillness of the shop, two people orbiting something too big to name. "I didn't mean for you to get caught in it," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "You just remind me of him sometimes. The way you look when you're thinking, the way you listen." I tried to say something, anything, but all that came out was a quiet, "I'm sorry." She smiled, faint and broken. "Don't be. You've been kind. And that's dangerous for people like me." Her gaze dropped to my hands, still clutching the photo. She reached out slowly, resting her fingers over mine. "You see, that's why I stopped replying. I realized I was starting to talk to you like he was still alive." There it was, the truth that didn't need to be louder than a whisper. I didn't pull my hand away. Neither did she. But in that moment, the distance between love and grief felt paper-thin, almost sacred. She took the photo back, folded it carefully, and whispered, "I just wanted someone to remember him right." not through pain, but through kindness. Then she stepped away, her eyes glimmering with something I couldn't read, gratitude, maybe, or regret. And before she left, she said the one thing that shook me the most. You reminded me that silence isn't the same as being gone. The next few days blurred into something softer, not empty, not full, just quiet. She didn't come by again, and I didn't expect her to. Still, I found myself keeping the office light on a little later each night, as if that faint yellow glow might pull her back. Then, one evening, as I was locking up, I saw her standing across the street. No car this time, just her, holding an umbrella, the wind catching her hair in small, restless waves. She crossed over when she saw me. "You're always here late," she said. "Bad habit," I answered, smiling a little. She nodded, gaze wandering past me to the dimly lit shop interior. "It's peaceful here. No one asks questions." "Except me," I said quietly. That earned me a small laugh, the kind that sounds like it's been waiting for air. We ended up sitting on the curb outside, rain drizzling just enough to blur the edges of the world. She handed me the umbrella halfway through and said, "You're getting wet." "So are you." She shrugged. "Maybe that's fair." We sat in silence for a while, not the heavy kind we used to share, but something calmer, like the space had learned to hold us without breaking. After a while, she said, "I keep trying to figure out what this is between us." I looked at her, really looked. The faint lines around her mouth, the damp hair sticking to her neck, the exhaustion that didn't seem to hide from me anymore. "I don't think it needs a name," I said. "It's already real." She turned to me then, eyes tired but bright in that half-light. "You shouldn't have had to carry any of this." "Maybe I didn't carry it," I said. "Maybe I just stayed still long enough for you to set it down." That made her go quiet. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with something gentler. Relief, maybe. She exhaled slowly, her shoulders dropping as if a weight had finally loosened. For a moment, the world felt suspended. The hum of distant cars, the smell of wet asphalt, the cold metal of the curb under our hands. Then, almost without thinking, she rested her head lightly against my shoulder. It wasn't a gesture of romance. It was surrender, the kind that says I'm tired, but I'm here. We didn't speak after that. There was nothing left to explain. Her breathing steadied, matching mine, the umbrella tilting slightly as the rain softened. I think both of us knew this wasn't forever, just something that finally found its shape before it had to fade. When she stood to leave, she touched my cheek briefly, her thumb brushing the edge of my jaw. Not affection, not farewell, just truth. "You'll be okay," she said. "So will you," I replied, though neither of us sounded sure. She smiled once, barely there, then walked into the mist, her figure dissolving into the quiet she'd once left behind. I stayed there long after she was gone, listening to the soft patter of rain, realizing that sometimes love doesn't arrive like lightning. Sometimes it just stops running away. It's been almost a year since I last saw her. Sometimes, when the shop is quiet, I still catch myself glancing toward the door, half expecting that small jingle of the bell, her silhouette against the fading light. But she never came back. And somehow, I've learned to stop waiting. The silence she left behind isn't heavy anymore. It's gentler now, like a blanket you learn to live under, not a weight pressing down. I still keep the umbrella from that night. It sits behind the counter, folded neatly beside a drawer of spare keys and receipts. I don't know why I've never moved it. Maybe because it reminds me that not everything left behind is meant to be forgotten. Sometimes, I think about the way she said you'll be okay. At the time, I didn't believe her. But maybe she knew something I didn't. That healing doesn't look like forgetting. It looks like understanding why you cared in the first place. She taught me that love doesn't always ask for forever. Sometimes it just asks for honesty, for the courage to be seen, even for a moment, and to let that be enough. There's a quiet kind of love that doesn't fit in words or plans. It doesn't promise anything. It just stays with you, shaping how you notice people, how you listen, how you hold the world a little softer after someone breaks it open for you. Every so often, a customer walks in with the same brand of perfume she wore. It catches me off guard, but not like it used to. Now, it just makes me smile, like hearing a song you once loved, realizing it still knows every corner of you, even if you've both moved on. And maybe that's what she gave me without meaning to. A better way of being quiet, of letting things exist without needing to own them. I don't think I'll ever know if she remembers me, but that doesn't matter anymore. What matters is that, for a little while, two people who shouldn't have found each other did. And in that brief collision, something true passed between us. Not a story about love that survived, just one that mattered while it existed. I still check my phone sometimes. Old habit, I guess. But the difference now is, when I see the empty message thread, I don't feel that ache anymore. Just gratitude. For what we said. And for everything we didn't. Sparkles, if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?